What's up, guys? It's your girl Phoenix Novell, and thank you for tuning into another Musicians on Gigs episode. Now, in this episode, I am discussing the topic of how to get through a shitty gig.
I like to desensitize, but this girl's got you on her mind. Something about your walk, talk, smile so bright, kinda something like my kryptonite. I'm not easy. But I know what I want. It's special, original. So let's have some fun. I'm so ready to die. Your body real close to me. Whole lot of romance. What's your fantasy? You and me tonight. Let's live the dream. You and me tonight. Rock waves. You and me tonight, baby.
To all my touring musicians and artists who, for a living, perform on a regular basis, you know what I'm talking about. Those kind of gigs that maybe at one point in time was impressive and then after a while just kind of went downhill, or a gig that you heard was whack but you needed the money, or a gig that was cool and then turned sour but you still have an obligation to fulfill the remainder of the contract, whatever. This video is going to give you a few tips as to how to endure and execute on your previous agreement to fulfill the contract. Some people break contracts and say, you know what, this ain't for me, and I'll just pay whatever fee I gotta pay to get out of it, or I'll just leave and I'm sure that'll burn the bridge, but at least I don't have to deal with it or stay here any longer. It depends on the situation. Of course, I can't say, I don't believe that you should stay on a gig that is completely horrible for you and bad for your mental health and all that just because you made a deal, and gave your word. Depends on the circumstances and the situation. But if it's just that maybe you were dating somebody and then things went sour and then you're working with them, or you had an altercation with somebody, or you just are homesick or whatever, if it's something that is more so not so detrimental to you, and you can kind of like meditate and fix your mind so that you don't focus on that energy, if you're not in harm's way or anything, then this video is more so about that, how to deal with little things that really aren't, so horrible to deal with on a shitty gig. I started performing when the whole smoking in a club thing was a thing, where they would just be right in your face. And I was working on one particular gig where the stage was very low. It was the people could just touch me, like one-on-one right here. And sometimes the stage was so low that they could just jump on stage with you right there and in 1 second be up there with you, and then they're smoking a fucking cigar right here, and then they want to sing with you and them. So I've been performing abroad and with bands internationally when that was not a problem. It was like, hey, sure, the more flexible you are to get this crowd participation going, the better. But sometimes it was too much. There were times where I just did not want to have that, be in that proximity to another person who I didn't have to be, because it could affect my health, And so my first tip is to find your comfort level. Like, find the place where you can say, I can do this gig without compromising myself or my health and my safety. Find where you feel the most, this is what I can do, and this is what I can do to stay here and fulfill my obligation. Okay, so say for instance, in that particular situation, what I had to do was I had to reposition myself. I had to talk to my band leader. I had to say, hey, I would like to walk around or whatever doing this part, so that if I'm walking around, the chances of somebody pinning me in or putting their arm around me and kind of boxing me in while they're smoking in my face is smaller, because I'm everywhere. I got my wireless microphone, I'm over here, I'm over there, and whenever it's uncomfortable for me in a specific location, I have the ability to remove myself from there, or Yeah, I have the ability to be malleable, and so I was able to say, all right, this is what I'm comfortable with, this is not. I couldn't tell the club owner, hey, I don't like cigarette smoke in my face, right? Because these were paying customers, and they were return customers, and they want to keep their business. And most likely you're on this contract for 6 months, and you may or may not be asked to come back. Sometimes 3 months, sometimes 6 months, sometimes longer. But you're more replaceable than they are, okay? Because you're making the money, they're paying, and you're costing the money, right? So that's number one. Find your comfort zone. Find, if you can find it, determine your comfort level. And if you know that you can stay and secure this shitty gig or whatever within the boundaries of your comfort zone, then see it through to the end, okay? The second tip I have for enduring a shitty gig is making some you time. This is very important for international gigs because usually we don't know anybody. Usually this is a new experience for you and everybody else in your band. If you happen to come and join a back line that's been there for a while, chances are they've established a little bit of a routine. They know where to go. There's a life that they're creating outside of the gig that maybe you can kind of fall into and follow them. But sometimes the band comes together. Sometimes all of you are having this experience for the first time. And if you're not necessarily a close-knit group where you spend your off days together, then you're going to have to, I think the easiest way is to become cool, or get a little familiar with the regulars of the venue that you're performing in. All right, maybe even the bartenders or the wait staff or the managers, someone who knows the area so that you're not out there in areas that may be safe, may not be safe, and too much of a tourist, so that your experiences can be more pleasant. It's nicer when you have a local because they can speak the language if you're in a country where English is not the primary language. And, you can easily get ripped off if the currency is different, So finding somebody, either somebody in the band who's been there before you or knows the area, or patrons of the club or staff of the club who is familiar with that, who's a local, who's familiar with the areas you could go to, can help you in terms of bargaining for things and sightseeing or whatever. Find and develop a way to enjoy your time there so that your whole time there is not just this shitty ass gig and not wanting to be somewhere and just thinking about it every day and counting down till you can get the hell out of there. If you create some kind of fun or some kind of source of entertainment and enjoyment away from the parts that don't really serve a purpose to you anymore, then you're not just going to think the whole time with this sense of dread and negative energy and just waiting until you can leave. Okay, so find something other than the gig to bring you some source of pleasure. Okay? And the last tip that I have, I'd say, to endure a shitty gig is to find ways to make the gig fun. If you can. I mean, if you're in a band where nobody can stand each other, that's hard. Like if the front line is just at each other's throats and you don't want to sing my backup parts, you ain't learning my songs right, or whatever, or the drummer's rushing the tempo or whatever it is, or you can tell they ain't been practicing because they don't like you, whatever it is. Like that can be so painful because every time you step on stage, you can't even make the gig fun because they're not even really wanting to follow your lead. Sometimes you want to stop the music so that you can let the crowd talk and just have a live moment, and they don't care. No, keep going. Like that can really affect your peace of mind and your sense of enjoyment. So I get that. This part might not be easy to attain, but if it is possible for you to find the great in just one little thing that you can like hone in on that's good about each person that you're working with on the gig. Like if you happen to have issues with your band or whatever, but they're not so serious, find a way to make the gig enjoyable, because if you can, then you can turn an otherwise shitty gig that just keeps going downhill and built up this momentum of shittiness on this performance. You can actually turn it into an okay situation where you can start vibing again, where you can actually get over yourself and get over what issues that you brought out of each other. Find a way to connect musically. If these are the limitations, if you're working with artists who don't want to rehearse, if you're working with artists who don't want to look good and be a team player and learn songs that the crowd is requesting to learn, or they don't like your rendition of it and they want you to do it a certain way. Like, if you're working with musicians who are so confined to this box, then again, work with what you have. Right? Work with what the conditions are and find a way to, in your mind, get over your need for it to be something it's not. Because it's easier to change yourself than it is to change your outside circumstances, because the outside circumstances are rolling with the momentum of your past projections, if that makes sense to you. What we see today is from past projections of what our mind was seeing yesterday. All right, so it's not like you're creating live in the moment. What's happening is it's a big old force of a cause that you were a part of before, and you can't just keep your focus there, because it's only going to continue building in that momentum. But now, if I'm working with somebody who I know does not want to sing my background harmonies, or doesn't like that I ad-lib so much, or doesn't want to do the dance choreography, or doesn't want to dress up complimentary to each other, it'll only make me more disgusted and irritated by focusing on all the things they don't want to do. But if I focus my attention on what they do well and how I can use what they do well and what they want to do to my benefit, then I will create a better experience for myself. Okay? Because there's a reason why they're on the gig. They have something to offer. Figure out what it is and learn how to make it useful to you. That's what a smart and resourceful person does. They don't sit there and whine about how things are. They figure out how they can make what is what they need it to be. And if you are a band leader or somebody whose job it is to put people in their place and set up a system, and then that's a different story, because it's your job to make sure that I execute on what's expected of me. Right? Like, yo, you're supposed to be doing choreography. Yo, you can't wear that. Yo, you need to look better. Whatever it is. Or, yo, you're not prepared. Let's get it. Like, it's different. So these things apply, but on a lesser scale, because sometimes you have to be the heavy. Sometimes you have to call attention to these issues that need to be addressed in order to make the band better and to make the band have a better chance of continue getting gigs booked, or make your clients happy. Like, your job is sometimes to be that person who whips the band into their fullest potential, but sometimes you're just a part of the act, right? And you're not necessarily somebody who has the authority to tell somebody else to do their job better. And so you have more freedom, like I said, in the sense of where you don't have to be the one to try to change them. Just work on you, show up the way you need to show up, and other people will see it. They'll see whether or not people are behind you and supporting you or whatever, but focus on their strengths and focus on. Another thing I notice is that when I don't sit there and harp on the fact that you ain't got my back, or you're not out there performing and you ain't giving your all, and focusing on what other artists are not doing that I'm doing, most of the time when they see that you are having a good time and that you're easygoing, they actually want to do more. They want to join in on the fun too. That's what my experience has been. When I stopped saying, he's not singing background harmonies, or he's not learning the choreography, or he doesn't care, or he's not socializing, or he's not trying to, create a show unlike any other. When I stopped doing that, more artists were showing up saying, hey, how about this idea? What about this? They were willing to do what they weren't necessarily being paid to do. When I just focused on me and making me as creative as I wanted to be, and letting them do what they felt like the boss isn't saying nothing, so why are you riding me? Letting them show up, as long as the nose was right, you know what I'm saying, and everybody's singing in key, then I didn't need to harp on them because they didn't wear purple jacket and I wore purple, skirt. Like, I didn't have to focus on that, because a lot of times when you resist something or you push against it, it pushes back just because it can. Usually you don't always get what you want because you're barking about it. So find a way to make the gig enjoyable by using what you have, and understanding that the more you sit there and sulk about what you don't have, the bigger that ball is going to get of the gig being shitty and you not wanting to be around them, and you're not helping yourself either, because every time you think about, shit, it's about that time, I gotta hit the stage, you're going to give off this energy of dread, and the audience can feel that. The audience can see unhappy faces, like they are like looking at us, and you think just because you're up there singing your song that you're really not. Just enjoy what you can control and stop trying to control everything, because in you letting go, sometimes you help yourself, you help the situation, because people, they don't want to be considered the problem. But if you're the one pointing the finger at them, usually they don't want you. Sometimes they just want to battle you because they feel like, no, I ain't the problem, you the problem. Then it becomes both of us thinking the other person is a problem, and now that experience is just toxic. So hopefully that helped you guys endure and get through a shitty gig. Like I said, if it's something that's affecting your mental health and or safety, or where you feel like I just can't, you got to do what you got to do for yourself. You have to understand that there may be consequences that come with that. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. So once again, it's your girl Phoenix Novell, and I have included the email below. If you have any topic ideas, if you have any questions that you want me to address, make sure you email me directly, and hopefully I can address it in the next video. Thank you guys, and watch out for the next video. Peace.